Good afternoon, my turtle ducks. Just in time for tea. Please help yourself. I've got sugar and honey and cream or lemon, and we've got jam and butter for the tea cookies. Last time, we finished up with the basics of host etiquette. I'd like to continue today with hosting long-staying guests. Let's go from the shortest stays to the longest. Overnight guests are those who have either been explicitly invited to stay for a single night or to whom the offer was extended after it became either too dangerous or impossible for them to return home under their own power. Although in such cases a spare bed will always be the most favorable option, there may not be one available for every household to provide. Space permitting, it is not a bad idea to have an inflatable mattress or two with spare sheets for just such an occasion. If a bed is not available, the next best offerings is one's couch or a particularly large chair. If neither of these options are available, a pallet on the floor should suffice. It should be noted that if a pallet is all you have to offer, it should only be made under unexpected circumstances. It is impolite to invite someone over for an overnight visit without a proper place for them to sleep. If you can afford to be exceptionally well stocked, it is extremely convenient to your guests if you can provide a little necessities and a few luxuries for guests to decompress in their allotted space. Not everyone will want or avail themselves of your offerings, but if you can afford to have them on hand, I think you will find many of your guests to be very impressed with your preparedness as a host. It is also wise to stock one's pantry and fridge before the guests arrive, and have meals planned out ahead. This should prevent unexpected grocery trips. An overnight guest should be expected to leave sometime the next day. It is perfectly acceptable to go about your usual morning routines, though if they are sleeping near the kitchen, you might take some care about how much noise you make. Be prepared to make enough breakfast to include your guests. You will also want to prepare enough lunch for your guests if they're staying long enough that such consideration is warranted. Guests staying the weekend should be expected no earlier than Friday and should leave no later than Sunday afternoon to impose as little on a house, particularly a working house, as possible while still enjoying as much of their company as possible. Weekend guests do require more care, as it is the host's responsibility to look after them and keep them entertained. You will also be expected to provide a bed, so please do not invite anyone for a weekend stay if your only offerings will be a couch or a pallet. Although the weekend does not need to be itemized, have a loose list of activities available for your guest along with the finances, transportation, and time to follow through with your activities. Have alternate activities for unexpected changes in weather. Guests staying for 1 or 2 weeks may be treated as weekend guests, though there may be less pressure upon you as a host. If you are still required to work during that period, it is expected the guests will be able to look after themselves during your working hours. Try to ensure your home is easily accessible for guests staying for such a long period. You may even need to make a spare key so they may come and go as they please. What do we do if a guest has stayed longer than expected? The most polite thing one can do is try to mention other obligations that are time sensitive. For example, I have work quite early tomorrow. I have an appointment this afternoon. An attentive guest will take the hint and take their leave, thanking you for your generous hospitality. Sometimes, however, guests may be so taken with all you have offered that they may not notice more subtle hints. More overt questions such as, "I'm sure you're eager to be home," or "I'm sure your cat Spiffy is missing you," may be enough to clue in your guest that it's time to go. For truly stubborn guests, you may have to be quite forceful indeed. However, try to remain polite and calm. Perhaps something such as, "Will you be fine going home on your own?" Or even, "It has been so lovely having you. Do you need help packing your car?" Regardless of how long your guest remains with you, you will have certain responsibilities. You are, within reason, responsible for the well-being of your guest. Any hazards or dangers around your house or property should be clearly noted to your guests. Rules regarding the safety of your guests and your household should be made explicitly clear. If it is quite long, consider writing it down so your guests may have a copy. It is also your responsibility to protect your guests as you would a member of your own household from any threats or insults, particularly from members of your household. It is also important to keep guests reasonably stimulated, whether that is conversation, games, movies, music, or another manner is up to you and your resources, but try to have a good balance between activities and rest periods. Some guests will have more energy than others, just like hosts, so try to plan your days accordingly. The longest stay anyone is likely to be in your space without paying you rent will be any digital space you call home. In some ways, this is much easier to moderate, and in some ways, it is more difficult, as you cannot always be present when other people begin interacting in your digital space the way you would in your physical home. Additionally, some digital spaces are simply easier to moderate than others, with more controls given to the controllers of a space than others. Often, you have the ability to temporarily mute, block, or even remove people from a space with a few simple clicks to stop aggressive behavior in its tracks. On the other side, intonation is typically absent in a digital space, and years of chronic stress have left people very on edge. Disagreements and misunderstandings can spiral quickly out of control into outright name-calling and proverbial hair-pulling at the most inconsequential of perceived slights. If your digital landscape has space for it, so-called house rules and limitations on what one may or may not do are always advisable. Express the behavior you expect explicitly and hold people to it. If someone begins behaving badly, calling them out in front of people almost never works, but private messages ensure you rarely need to. You can always message someone privately without having to obviously pull them away for chastisement. Utilize this ability as much as possible to put out fires before they can start. But remember, if someone is truly behaving abusively, digital spaces make it very easy to remove their influence from yours. Well, I think that's all that we have time for today. I should get back to work. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, be kind, my little turtle ducks, to others and to yourselves.